What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Nescent Studios. Michaela Vernava alongside Andre Cacciatorian, and we are joined via Skype by UFC.com's Matt Perino. Andre is flexing over here.
Flexing.
We're
just getting
ready
into fighting
to go.
stance, you know?
We're analyzing. We're not fighting.
Yeah, me and Matt fight a lot, though, in these shows.
He flexes because he knows that me and him don't agree on much, so
we don't.
We're just preparing for the battle that's going to commence here in a moment.
Well, not agreeing is a good thing for what we do. I feel like we just might all agree on this first topic that we're going to talk about. Not going to talk about it for too long, but we haven't convened since Michael Bisping got his bell rung in Shanghai. That punch, whew.
Yeah, it was devastating punch.
Yeah, my head is still ringing just from
mine too.
Watching it.
It was, but you know what?
Gnarly hit.
We all saw, you know, Michael Bisping. He came out and he last month. I'm not gonna cling on to this too much, but he did come out and he called me an idiot on our UFC podcast, and you see, just bad luck just keeps following him. He's lost 2 straight fights. It doesn't look good for him.
You don't look too sorry for him.
No, I mean, I like him.
This is the guy that's usually just spilling with empathy.
No, but let me say,
for Michael Bisping,
it was. I have a lot of respect for him to come out there 3 weeks after his loss to GSP, and you know, he took that fight. Just didn't go out the way he planned it to.
Well, respect is one thing, but I mean, I feel like I predicted this. I didn't think that Bisping would do well. I feel like a lot of people predicted it. It's one thing to respect him.
He was a heavy underdog.
Matt, do you think it was a smart career move for him, or does it just not matter at this point? He's obviously a legend in the sport and has been around long enough that, but I don't know. What did you think of him fighting so soon after fighting GSP?
I think, you know, obviously not the result he wanted, but the effect of him stepping up and taking that fight on short notice, you know, it spoke about volumes about him, who he is as a fighter, who he's been his entire career. He's a gamer. He's a fighter at heart. And to be honest with you, I think it did more benefits to his brand than anything he's ever done in his career. I mean, if you comb social media in the week leading up to that fight, I've never seen more pro-Bisping, you know, chatter on Twitter in my entire time covering him. So I feel like it's almost like we're transitioning to the next phase of Bisping, who's kind of the movie star and the analyst. And I think people are starting to kind of appreciate him for what he was, you know, for a long time where he wasn't getting the appreciation that maybe he deserved.
Do you think that him doing that kind of sets a good example and sort of sets the table for the future of the sport? Because there are a lot of young fighters who don't do what he just did, get right back up on the horse after a tough loss. We talked weeks ago, Donald Cerrone, Cowboy Cerrone is one of those guys that I feel like is fighting so often. And I do respect that. I think it's a good move.
Yeah.
I'd rather see fighters fight, and for some of these kids that come in and just are, I don't know, they don't fight as often. Do you think it's a good thing for them to be able to see older fighters that are just out there taking risks and taking fights?
Yeah, I agree. I think, again, also for Bisping, we talked about, because of the fact he took this fight under such short notice, because he lost, he is getting an outpouring of support because just the fact that he took that fight. It was 3 weeks notice. He lost. Okay, big deal. The guy fought 3 weeks ago. So it was a good insurance policy on his part, because it's a win-win situation. If he wins, like, wow, Michael Bisping, 3 weeks after he lost, he came out and he won this fight. But if he loses, oh, it was only a 3-week hiatus for him. So,
Matt, what do you think about younger fighters maybe taking that approach? Do you think that would be dumb for them, or is that something you'd like to see more of?
I feel like I've seen it both ways. There's been people that have had success doing this, that have, like, you know, taken a fight on short notice. There's guys like John Jones who, throughout his career, has been very hesitant to take a change in opponent late. Like, Bisping now has been the guy that steps up to fight and who has taken a last-minute opponent. And I think it's a case-by-case basis. Some people it's going to work for, some people it's not. You have to kind of talk that out with your own team and your own coaches and what you're comfortable with. He's just the type of fighter that he kind of likes foregoing all of the dieting and training and everything and just getting in there and fight. He's a fighter.
Well, what do you think is next for him? Do you think retirement's on the horizon? Do you think he'll stay at it for a while?
I definitely think you know, he's a fight or two away here. He spoke about, maybe going out in London. He's going to take some time away from the sport or out of the kind of limelight here for a moment, do the analyst stuff, do his kind of side projects. And yeah, I mean, he's turned in an unbelievable career. It's a story that will be told years and years down the line of the perseverance of Michael Bisping. It's really amazing. He's a guy that when I first got into MMA, before I ever thought about covering it from a media perspective, I didn't like him. Like he was kind of the heel of it all, right? He was the bad guy. Nobody really liked him. And but over the course of time, I've come to really respect and appreciate him. And I think that he's just one of those guys that, fought in an era where a lot of guys were taking some stuff and a lot of things weren't, maybe the deck wasn't completely stacked evenly. And I think he overcame that and had the best run of his career at the very end, beat Luke Rockhold, who at the time was a devastating champion who people thought was going to reign for a long time. And, it's a great storybook ending.
You know what I want to see him finishing off in London? But the opponent I want to see him fight is Yoel Romero. I think that'll be a fantastic end to his career. Fight a guy who he's been jawing with for the last couple years in trash talk and all that stuff. Wouldn't that be something? Romero and Bisping for his last fight. That would be great.
I agree. That'd be cool.
What do you think, though, if he takes the fight in London and loses that fight? Then do you think he'll keep going? Because I was thinking about this for a while
Finish
today.
on top?
Yeah, what it must be like to be an athlete and knowing that whether it's your last game or your last fight, whatever it is near, and deciding that. But if you don't, I don't know. I feel like not going out on top must be I feel like that's something, if I were a professional athlete, that I would always think about for the rest of my time.
Dan Henderson didn't finish his career on top. He lost to Bisping, actually, in his last fight. I'm sure he's happy with his life.
Well, I know a lot of athletes, most people don't
Not
go
everyone
out
is
on
Ted
top,
Williams
but
hits
I'm
a
just
home run
saying
in his last
someone
at-bat.
like Bisping, who's been at it for so long, if he does lose, I mean, why not, I guess, keep fighting until you can go out with a win?
It's hard to frame that perfect moment to walk away, right? You think of Michael Jordan. I mean, he had it right there, right? He hit the shot, he beat the Jazz, it was right there, but he still came back and still wanted to kind of pursue things. It's the same thing. It's very hard to stage that. You're not going to really walk away as the champion most of the time. And I think Bisping had his really amazing ending in the championship run, and I think now comes out. You can see that, he's definitely at the end here. I mean, to get finished 2 times in a month, I mean, I think he knows that his best days are behind him, and there's no fault in that. He's had a great career, and I think he's ready to move on to the next stage.
Absolutely. Jordan one is a good example. I think Tom Brady's a good example too, but the difference
Jordan
being
came
that
back.
that's what I'm saying, though, is that Tom Brady could have ridden into the sunset after winning Super Bowl 51. The guy's 39 years old. Now he's 40. Might not win another Super Bowl.
He's 60 years old, so
What?
I mean, come on. He's going to be winning Super Bowls
that's
till he's
true,
60
but
years old.
I think it's different for a guy like Brady, because if he doesn't win another Super Bowl for the rest of his career, he can't always blame it on his supporting cast, the team that's around him, a lot of other factors, whereas for a fighter, it's pretty individual. I know there are a lot of people that help train and such, but very individual sport, so I feel like it's different. But
we'll see what happens with him. There's a big card this weekend.
There is. I said we wouldn't talk about Bisping for too long, but I mean, he is an intriguing topic.
Yes.
So on that note, let's move on to UFC 218 and the headliner, Holloway versus Aldo, the rematch. I think this is going to be a really, really good fight. I don't know. It's tough to pick in this one. Matt, let's start with, what do you think we're going to see?
Well, it's kind of the last stand of Jose Aldo, right? I mean, The guy is still pretty young if you're just talking about age, but he's been in some battles. He's been around for a long time. I think he's approaching 30 fights. And but this is it. I mean, to get another title shot after losing to McGregor and losing the title, then coming back and getting it again when McGregor went up to 155, beating Frankie Edgar, and then losing it to Holloway. This could be it. I mean, you don't know when the next time he's going to get a title shot. So I think you're going to see him come out and really lay everything on the line, fight the way that I think a lot of people thought he would fight the first fight, use the leg kicks a little bit more, be a little bit more strategic, use a little bit more, try to master the range a little bit better. I feel like that's where he ran into trouble in the first fight, is when he let Max settle into his striking and his comfort level, and that's when Max took over in the third round. He looked good in the first 2 rounds. So I think he's got a good team. He's got a, he's a great fighter. He's an all-time great. I think he'll employ a better game plan this fight. I think it'll be a little bit more. I think it'll go a little longer.
Yeah, you just talked about the leg kicks, Matt. In that first fight, just one leg kick in the whole fight. You look at 3 previous opponents that Max Holloway has had. Showtime Pettis, he was 11 of 14 in terms of leg kicks versus Holloway. Ricardo Lamas, 25 of 28 in leg kicks versus Holloway. And Jeremy Stephens, 24 of 26. These 3 guys all succeeded in terms of leg kicks against Holloway, and Aldo kind of just went away from that. It'll be interesting to see if he employs leg kicks. The thing is, Aldo, the last time he's had more than 10 leg kicks in a fight was way back in 2014 against Ricardo Lamas. Did a great job employing leg kicks in that fight, which is confusing as to why he ran away from that. And another thing is, the longer this fight goes, I do think the advantage goes to Holloway. I don't know what you think about that, Matt. But
well, on the leg kicks too, we can ask Matt both of these topics. But as you mentioned, the 3 guys that did land so many kicks against Holloway, I brought up that they didn't win though. So is that enough to tip the scales if Aldo can get those kicks in?
Nobody wins against Max Holloway. He's won 11 in a row. I mean, he's 1 win away now from tying George St. Pierre's win streak, which he's currently riding as well. But then you look above that, the only people that have had a longer win streak in UFC history, John Jones, Anderson Silva, and Demetrious Johnson. You're talking about the Mount Rushmore of this sport, and Max Holloway's there at 25 years old. This is a serious, serious test for Jose Aldo. I'm not sure that if you ask me right now, if I could come up with one person that could beat Max Holloway. I mean, I think there's someone out there that can do it, but he is the best of the best. I think what makes him so amazing is he's got a very good skill set, and he's known for his pace. His striking rate is the #1 in featherweight history. And what he does is he comes in, he lets you kind of, get yourself going, and then he starts to ramp up the pace as the fight goes along. This is what Andre was just talking about. And once you get to the 3rd or 4th round, it's like he's just starting, and that's got to be a little bit deflating for opponents.
Yeah, you look at that first fight between Aldo and Holloway. That first round, you feel like Holloway was a little stiff, a little nervous. He was in his opponent's hometown, home building. Everyone was booing him. He seemed a little stiff. At the end of the second round, you see him showboating the last 15 seconds. And okay, Holloway has settled in, and then the 3rd round he took over, and the fact that the guy, he could strike with both hands with great efficiency, left hand and right hand. It's not many fighters can do that. That's his biggest strength. Again, averages nearly 6 significant strikes per minute. And he's also 3rd in takedown defense. We all know how good Aldo can be on the ground. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. But Holloway doesn't really go down. 3rd in takedown defense in terms of active featherweights. So I think Aldo's in for another tough fight in this one.
And Matt, I know you started off by bringing up Aldo really isn't all that old, but I always kind of forget that. I always feel like he's older than he is. I don't know why that is. I just, and I'm not consciously, I don't know if it's, but I almost feel like he's past his prime, and that's, in addition to the fact that Holloway has just been so dominant, I really am leaning, I think it's going to be a good fight, but I'm leaning toward Holloway in this one.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to pick Max Holloway to win this one by finish. The thing is, I think there's a lot of parallels that could be made between Aldo and Holloway. Jose Aldo started in this sport when he was very, very young. He himself had a 15-fight win streak between WEC and UFC, 9 title defenses, 9 knockouts, most in the history of the division. And this is his chance to show that he's still there. It's a perfect example. We just talked about Michael Bisping, a guy that, had some success at the end of his run. This might not even be the end of Jose Aldo's run, and this is a chance for him to kind of retake everything that he's lost since he fought Conor McGregor at UFC 194. And I think he's motivated. Things seem different this week. I don't know why. But I will say, I just watched them stare off downstairs at Media Day, and the size difference is unbelievable. Max towers over Aldo, and that's another thing that's made Max so successful at this weight. He's the biggest guy in the division. I think he'd almost be a little bit bigger than Conor McGregor if they fought again, because when they fought before, he was still kind of growing into his body. He's just a massive 145er, and with the power and the speed and the pace, it's a tough matchup.
It's interesting, Matt. You just talked about the height difference. What's interesting, Aldo actually has a reach difference. He's 4 inches shorter than Holloway, but he has a longer reach. Just think that's an interesting physical type of specimen he is.
Yeah, it's only 1 inch difference, but it is. I mean, no, that's true. It is interesting. But we interviewed Max Holloway, remember, in Houston, Radio Row,
Yes.
Super Bowl week, and I did notice that standing next to him. That I was like, oh, this guy's only in the 145 weight class, which I know that when fighters aren't fighting, they can vary in weight, but that is definitely just, yeah, Aldo, 5'7", so certainly an interesting point. But speaking of, when we had a bunch of fighters roll through on Radio Row, and we made a little montage of them trying to teach me some moves. And remember when we asked Holloway to teach me a move? He didn't really teach me a move. He said, "Yeah, I created a new move. It's called." He takes his belt off his shoulder. It's called "hit the opponent over the head with their belt."
Yeah,
and I was like,
that.
"Oh, okay."
A good sense of humor guy, good natured person.
Yeah, good, all in good
Relaxed
fun, but
Hawaiian
also
person.
a good flex. Just the little reminder there that he has had that belt and doesn't plan on giving it up.
So look at that. All three of us agree. Holloway's on.
I know, you guys agree on something.
A rare occasion.
This is,
rare occasion.
special
Let's see if
moment.
we agree on this next fight.
Special moment. Yes, let's move on. Alistair Overeem versus Francis Ngannou, a heavyweight clash of heavyweight titans. I think this is going to be a good one. Who wants to start on what they think is going to happen?
I'll let Matt start because he's huge on Francis Ngannou.
It's hard not to be. I mean, to watch this guy train every day out in Vegas. He moved to Vegas about 6 months ago, and he's working out at the Performance Institute. So I'm up close and personal watching this guy work. I've never in my life, and I've been around a lot of pro athletes, I've never seen a physical specimen like Francis Ngannou. You stand next to him, and it's like you see his arm, and his bicep is about as big as my torso. And I mean, maybe not that big, but he's just a huge person. And then you go and you watch some of these videos that have been done on him, and there's one that came out this week. It's kind of like a sports science thing showing, how hard he hits, and he's, for all intents and purposes, the hardest puncher on the planet. And see, that's just a thing. In this division, because these guys are so big, traditionally, you take 1 or 2 really good, clean, hard shots, and you're going to go down. With this guy, he's shown that if he hits you on the button, you're going to sleep. It's over. I mean, he knocked out Andrei Arlovsky with like a hook backing up on his back foot. I mean, the power that he possesses is unbelievable. But with all that said, I'm a big Francis guy. Do not count out Alistair Overeem. This guy has 43 professional MMA wins. 43 wins. This is going to be, I think, Francis's 11th pro fight or 12th pro fight. Yeah. Not to mention all of his kickboxing accomplishments, Alistair Overeem. He's employed a new style recently. He's more of a stay on the outside, pick his time to attack. He'll use some wrestling. He trains at Jackson's. It's a great matchup. It's perfect. It's perfect for Alistair because he wants another title shot, and this would probably grant that. And it's perfect for Francis because this is that first elite opponent that he could finally announce to the world, I'm here and I'm ready for the title.
Yeah, what a great assessment of Ngannou and Overeem there by our good friend Matt Prina. But let me just add that this is a classic clash between youth versus experience. And I think Ngannou's going to have well, not even youth in terms of Ngannou.
Yeah, he's not much younger, 6 years younger.
Yeah, but in terms of experience, this is again, Ngannou, he hasn't have as many fights under his belt as Overeem, and I think that might come into play in this fight. You see Overeem also, he lands more significant strikes. He's more accurate with his strikes. Ngannou has never landed a takedown in his career either, and Overeem is pretty solid on the ground as well. So even if the fight does go there, I like Overeem slightly to beat Ngannou in this one. It'll be close. I don't think it'll go a full distance because neither of these guys ever go a full distance. So I'm taking Overeem. What about you?
Ngannou has beaten your guy, Curtis Blades, though.
Yes, he has. No, he has. Look, Ngannou's going to have a great long career. He'll have title shots. He might even be champion one day. But look, I'm going to go with the more experienced guy. Overeem's on fire. The only loss he's had in the last 5 or 6 fights is against Stipe. I mean, he's the best of the best right now. So I'm going to take out Alistair in this one.
It's true. And I think I have to say that just heavyweight matchups are my favorite in general. But
anything can happen.
I've got some confidence in Ngannou in this one. I think that he'll be able to pull it off. I think that inexperience will actually end up serving him well, as it sometimes does. Not
what about you,
always,
Matt?
I'm going with Francis Ngannou,
Right.
first round knockout. But
Ooh.
I think it's important, everything I mentioned about Alistair Overeem, I would not be surprised if he figured out a way to win this fight. The problem is, I think Conor McGregor famously said that, the chin does not age well, and he's right. Because if you've noticed over the course of the last couple years, when Alistair Overeem gets even touched on the chin, he's in damage mode. He's in survival mode. And I think that with this guy, what he's shown Francis, if he touches you, you are going to feel it. And Alistair's felt it. I mean, he almost got knocked out, I think, in his last fight. And this guy is just different. I mean, the way he hits, the way that he pursues, the way his boxing skills, he doesn't have the same damage. I think even if Alistair is able to touch Francis, he's got a chin. He'll be able to last. I'm going over and over in my head, and I don't see a way that Francis doesn't win this fight.
Wow.
I also have a hard time picking against a guy that has arms the size of Matt's torso. That was
I don't think
definitely
Overeem's is much smaller, though.
Tipping factor when I heard that. I know they are.
Sound like we're talking about a scrawny person.
I'm kidding, but anyway. So I'm taking Ngannou. Matt's taking Ngannou. You were going over.
We disagree here, yeah.
All right.
Let's move on.
With that, let's move on. Cejudo versus Pettis. What do you guys think of this fight? Let's start with you this time.
Okay, I like Cejudo in this fight. So I was going to say Pettis. I like Cejudo in this fight. You look at Pettis. The guy's never finished the fight in the UFC. Cejudo is more of a guy who finishes fights. He lands more significant strikes and takedowns, and he has 100% takedown defense. So I'm going to take Cejudo on this one. Either way, it's like I think the big storyline is this: one of these guys has to put on a real show in order to make Demetrious Johnson think in his head that let me take on one of these guys instead of TJ Dillashaw. So whoever wins, they really got to put on a good show, and I think that'll be Cejudo. I don't think it'll be enough to make Johnson be like, hey, I'm going to fight Cejudo instead of Dillashaw, but we'll see.
I think Pettis in this one. He has the height reach advantage. Matt, how about you?
He does have
Matt's
a significant reach advantage, yeah.
First.
So I love this fight, right? This was originally scheduled a few months ago. Henry had to pull out. This is like two of the top contenders that really haven't faced Demetrious Johnson. And I say that because Cejudo did get a shot, but he wasn't ready yet, I don't think. I mean, he was overwhelmed by Demetrious Johnson. We forget, this is an Olympic gold medalist that's just begun his journey in MMA. He got rushed to the top of the line because they were looking for contenders, and I think that when you face Demetrious Johnson, it's crazy. I mean, you're facing the GOAT, potentially. So I think now, Sergio, I talked to him today, and he is confident that his speed will be the difference in this fight, okay? But Henry Cejudo showcased in his last fight against Wilson Hayes not only the speed with his striking, but the power. I've never seen power at flyweight like Henry Cejudo displayed in his last fight, even from the champ. So if you're asking me for my pick, man, this is a tough one to call. I think Anthony Pettis or Sergio Pettis brings a lot to the table. But man, if that Henry Cejudo that fought Hayes shows up in this fight, I think he takes out Mighty Mouse.
Wow.
So who's the pick though?
Henry Cejudo. I'm gonna go with Cejudo on this one.
Okay.
We agree again.
Any last thoughts on this fight, or?
I mean, again, Cejudo, like as Matt mentioned, again, I was going to bring that up. Gold medalist, that plays into big fights like this. That's the biggest stage in sports, the Olympics, and he's been there. So I like Cejudo as well.
I guess just quickly before we move on, Matt, do you think that Johnson will want to fight the winner of this or take on Dillashaw?
I definitely think he'll want to fight the winner of this. He's made it very clear that he wants to fight the contenders in his division. I don't know. Demetrious doesn't seem to really care about legacy or what a fight potentially with a guy at 135 will do for his legacy. I think he's completely comfortable. Let me rephrase that. I think he cares, but I think what he's accomplished at flyweight and what he continues to do at flyweight is the legacy that he wants to leave behind, and that's what he's focused on. The TJ fight is interesting. I'm very excited for it. I think fans would be very excited for it. But, is TJ Dillashaw necessarily this, can't miss superstar draw of a name? Yeah. I'm not necessarily sure that's the case. So I do understand his point, and I think man, that Henry Cejudo that showed up last time, I think is just as big of a test as TJ Dillashaw.
I completely agree with Matt here. He brings up a good point about Dillashaw not being as huge of a name. I mean, it'll be probably a bigger money fight than Cejudo, but again, DJ just doesn't seem to bite for those the big money fights. He just wants to take care of business in his weight class. I don't agree with his approach, but that's who he is. It's his life. I can't tell him how to live it.
Certainly you cannot. But first things first, we need to see how the fight unfolds, and then we will certainly talk about what's next in future podcasts. But first, let's do some rapid fire for the rest of this UFC 218 card. So Alvarez versus Gaethje.
Justin Gaethje. I love Justin Gaethje. Let me tell you, I was texting our good friend Matt Perino before we got on here, and I was just saying this guy is gonna.
You guys were conspiring about your answers behind my back, sharing information. This is all supposed to be off the cuff, organic responses, so that we can invoke arguments.
I don't know what you just said, Matt.
Sorry,
but let
Matt.
me tell you, I think Gaethje is just gonna become a. He's already put himself in a situation where he's like on the cusp of being a star, but I think after UFC 218, everybody's gonna know who this guy is. This guy is he's 18-0. 15 of those 18 wins were knockouts. The guy has a devastating punch. This guy is gonna put Eddie Alvarez to sleep. Eddie Alvarez has been outstruck in 5 of his last 6 fights. That's not gonna cut it against a guy who hits as hard as Gaethje does. And I mean, I'm sorry, Matt. I know Matt told me I analyze fights like a fan. I've dropped down these good stats, and he said I analyze fights like a fan. I don't like that, Matt.
Well, I can hear a lot over here. I was going to say, Matt, whatever you said earlier, I didn't hear that IFB. I've been today, I don't know, I'm having a hard time
hearing to translate?
Anyway. No, but, I mean, I haven't been able to hear what Matt.
So the reason I said Andre analyzes fights like a fan is that he overreacts to what happened last, right? So he's discounting the career of Eddie Alvarez and what he has done. Listen, Rafael dos Anjos is one of the toughest pound-for-pound fighters of the last 5 or 6 years, okay? He's now doing what he did at 155 at 170. He's fighting Robbie Lawler later this month for what could be a title eliminator at 170 pounds. And Eddie Alvarez walked right through Rafael dos Anjos. He met Conor McGregor. He didn't respect the power, I don't think. Was overwhelmed by the moment. But since then, he had a war with Dustin Poirier. It could have gone either way. He got rocked in the fight. But even after he got rocked, he came back and almost took out Dustin Poirier before that all kind of went off path. Listen, Justin Gaethje is an animal. Man, I am so excited for this fight that I don't even know how I'm going to have anything left for the main event and the co-main event and this flyweight fight, because I am going to have to recover from what is going to happen here. Because not only are both of these guys promising devastating striking in this fight, but it's almost a can't miss. I mean, these guys both, the way they fight, I mean, Eddie Alvarez could turn this into kind of a, on the fence, grappling type of fight. But Justin Gaethje, All-American wrestler, he's going to be able to circle off the fence. He's going to be able to get back to the middle. And when he fights, in his last fight, 104 significant strikes landed in under 10 minutes. That's insane.
It sounds like when you're in the arena, though, you're watching the fights like a fan if you're so emotionally drained before the main card.
Just this one.
And you know what? You keep talking about how I get, I have recency bias is basically what you just said. You're the one falling in love with Ngannou a couple of fights ago. We were just debating. You're the one forgetting about Overeem's career. But now all of a sudden you're expecting me to remember Alvarez's career. All I could see in Alvarez's last 6 fights, he had that one good performance against RDA. He had 2 split decisions in there. He lost to McGregor. He's lost to Cowboy Cerrone. By the way, both McGregor and Cerrone, both knockout artists. What do you think Gaethje is? Knockout artist. He's going to knock him out in the first round. A star will be born on Saturday night. Justin Gaethje. Conor McGregor even went on Gaethje's win. He said, wow, what a fight. 2 fighters.
Well, McGregor says, wow, what a fight.
McGregor even has Gaethje on his radar. McGregor is going to be closely watching that fight because he knows if Gaethje has star power, Gaethje's a little bit of a trash talker. He's a very confident guy. That can be a good trash talk war. Gaethje McGregor down the road. Oh,
okay, so
tantalizing.
McGregor sees it as something to get him in the limelight, which he's always done.
In the octagon, not limelight, in the octagon. He hasn't been in the octagon. He's always in the limelight.
Yeah, but trash talking doesn't necessarily
but
you're
he's
gonna
not
have the
going to
best
take
fight.
any fight. He's going to take someone where there's going to be a limelight scenario in it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Like
so
Tony
he
Ferguson
wants the
doesn't do that.
limelight, not necessarily the best fight.
Okay, yeah. Anyway.
No, I totally agree with Andre. I think Justin Gaethje has crazy star potential, and I think that I don't even think we have to wait till after 218. I think he's already there. I mean, he's must-see TV. That debut was impressive. Of course, he's going to get the push now of being on a pay-per-view card, but he is a can't-miss just because of the way he fights. It doesn't matter if he wins or loses. Every time that he fights, people want to watch him fight. Little stat here for you, though. Eddie Alvarez. How many times has he been knocked out in his career?
Not many. 92% takedown defense. He's pretty good at it.
34 fights. He's been knocked out twice.
Yeah.
So if you think that Justin Gaethje is going to go in there and just first round knock out Eddie Alvarez, listen, if he does that, sign me up. He's star potential out of the building, but do not overlook Eddie Alvarez in this fight. He says, you bring out the dog in him and it's going to be a fight. I would not be surprised to see him win this fight. I wouldn't be surprised anything here. I'm just going to sit back as a fan and enjoy it.
I do think it's going to be a really good fight. I will pick Gaethje for this one. I agree with Matt, though. I think it's going to be
I think it'll be an unbelievable performance.
All right, let's end with Torres versus Waterson. What do you guys think of this one?
Torres and Michelle Waterson. I like this fight. I think it's a very important fight in the women's strawweight division. Both of these women, their most recent losses, both of them were against Rose Namajunas. So I feel like a winner of this fight might put themselves in a good position to get that rematch against Namajunas for her title defense. And I look at Waterson more in this fight. I think she's just more balanced, and she goes for finishes. I like that about her. Torres, a lot of her fights have gone the distance. Waterson's the more accurate striker at 71%, and she's better at takedowns. I'm going to take her in this one.
Matt, what do you think?
It's a tough one, man. I kind of going back and forth. Tecia Torres recently moved her camp down to Colorado. She's training out there with her girlfriend, Rocky Pennington, I think fiance actually. And they both seem to be really, enjoying life down there, enjoying, their training camp. And she says that she's coming to this with a full training camp. She's healthy. She's had one heck of a run. She's only lost that close decision to Rose Namajunas. She beat Rose back in Invicta. Tecia is going to be a tough out. Both karate styles. I think that, Michelle used to compete as an atomweight, so at 105 pounds. So she's kind of, I feel like, always a little bit undersized here in this division. But I'm going to go with Tecia Torres. I think that I think I'm going to disagree with Andre and say that I think she is able to strike with Michelle, and I think her grappling and her wrestling will be the difference.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one to pick. Can I just say, though, that there are a lot of weird, cool, funny, crazy nicknames in UFC. This is the matchup of the craziest nicknames, the Tiny Tornado versus the Karate Hottie.
I love it.
I just think that's an epic clash of the best nicknamed fighters in the sport.
It's funny, you say you think Torres, I don't know, Waterson averages nearly 3 submissions in 15 minutes. Statistically, Waterson's better on the ground. I'm curious as to why you think Torres has the advantage on the ground.
Because of her ground and pound. From top position, she's going to be bigger. She cuts weight down to get down there. She is smaller, but she's big, and she trains with Rocky Pennington, who's a big 135 pounder. She showcased at times. I think she had Rose Namajunas on the ground a few times in their fight. I just think that standing up, I think it's going to be a fun fight. But if she's able to land a takedown, and if she's able to maintain some top position, is where she's going to have success.
All right. Okay. Just wanted your opinion on that.
This was a very what's the word? Very civil session
discourse.
of disagreement, and actually a lot of you agreed on every fight.
No, we disagreed on 3 fights.
Oh. I can't keep up.
The end was very
well.
civil.
That's what I'm saying, though. It's been so civil that
I don't think it was civil.
I was
he said
thinking you agree.
Analyze fights like a fan. I thought that was
Here's a little
very
for you.
uncalled for.
What's that, Matt?
Here's a little nugget for you guys. So we're obviously UFC 218, huge card, stat card. But at the end of media day today, just now, Holm and Cris Cyborg faced off, and then they spoke to the media for a little while. UFC 219 in Las Vegas, end of the year. I want to tell fans a little bit something about this. This is the true definition of a super fight, okay? You have Holm, the person that beat Ronda Rousey, the great Ronda Rousey, against Cris Cyborg, who's considered to be maybe the greatest female MMA fighter of all time. There's a lot of talk going around, and Tyron Woodley wants a super fight, and all these people are talking about super fight. This is a super fight. One person from one division, one person from the other, both equally big names colliding, UFC 219, and there's a little bit of tension. I like it.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm a huge Holm fan. I think she's big fan of her. She's a fantastic fighter. I can't wait for that one.
It'll be a good fight.
December 29, right? Or 30? December 30.
Yes.
December 30.
Good way to end the year.
Yeah.
All right, feels like a good note to end our podcast. So we will reconvene next week, talk all about everything again. Once again, we'll
Very much
recap,
so.
we'll look forward, and it will be a ton of fun as always. Matt, thanks for joining us, and everyone keep it on Nesson.com for all your UFC news, also UFC.com, obviously, and we'll see you next week.